Zainab stood in front of her small mirror, admiring the dress she had spent 3 weeks making. The fabric was a rich burgundy color with golden patterns that caught the light beautifully. She had stitched every seam by hand, carefully placing each bead in just the right spot. Her hands were sore from the needle pricks, but she did not care. This dress was special. It represented everything she had worked for. She had been invited to Aid's wedding, and this was the first time in years that she would see her childhood friend. They had grown up together in the same neighborhood, playing in the streets, sharing lunch and dreaming about their futures. Ade had always been the prettier one, the more confident one, the one who made friends easily. Zainab had always been quieter, more focused on her sewing and her designs. But they had loved each other like sisters. As the years passed, their lives took different paths. Ade met a wealthy businessman named Kofi at a party, and within 2 years they were getting married. Kofi came from one of Lagos's most successful families. His father owned several companies and his mother was a well-known socialite. Aid's life changed overnight. She moved into a mansion in Ikoyi, started wearing designer clothes, and began surrounding herself with wealthy friends. When Ade sent Zainab an invitation to the wedding, Zainab's heart was filled with mixed emotions. She was happy for her friend, but she also felt something else. A small voice inside her whispered that Ade might have forgotten where she came from. But Zainab pushed this feeling away. Ade had called her personally to invite her. "Please come," Ade had said over the phone. "You have to be there. You are my oldest friend." Now, standing in front of her mirror, Zainab felt nervous but excited. She had not had money to buy an expensive dress, so she had made one herself. She was proud of her creation. The dress was beautiful and elegant, and it showed her talent as a designer. She curled her hair carefully and put on simple jewelry that her grandmother had given her. She looked good. She felt confident. The wedding venue was one of the most expensive hotels in Lagos. Zainab arrived in a taxi, feeling a little out of place among the expensive cars pulling up to the entrance. The lobby was filled with people wearing clothes that cost more than she made in 3 months. Women wore shoes that matched their dresses perfectly. Men wore tailored suits and expensive watches. Zainab took a deep breath and walked inside. The reception hall was decorated beautifully with white and gold decorations. Flowers filled every corner. Tables were arranged perfectly, and each one had crystal glasses and fine silverware. Zainab had never seen anything so fancy. She felt small and invisible in this place. She was looking for a quiet table where she could sit when she heard a loud voice call her name. "Zainab. Oh my God, you made it." It was Ade, but Ade was not alone. She was surrounded by a group of women, all wearing expensive jewelry and designer dresses. They were laughing about something, but when they saw Zainab, they suddenly went quiet. Ade ran over to Zainab with a big smile, but something about the smile did not feel genuine. It was the kind of smile someone gives when they are pretending to be happy. "Look everyone," Ade said loudly, pulling Zainab closer to her friends. "This is my old friend Zainab. We grew up together in the neighborhood. Look at her dress, she made it herself. Is that not cute?" The women looked at Zainab's dress, and Zainab saw their eyes move from her face to her clothes. She saw the way their mouths turned up slightly, not in admiration, but in something that looked like pity mixed with amusement. One of the women, who wore a dress that probably cost more than everything Zainab owned, spoke up in a high voice. "You made it yourself? Oh honey, that is so creative. Where did you get the fabric?" Zainab tried to smile. "I bought it at a market in Yaba. I get good prices there because I am a regular customer." "Yaba?" Another woman laughed. "Of course that makes sense." The other women joined in the laughter, and their laughter made Zainab feel smaller. Ade did not stop them. Instead, she continued talking about Zainab as if Zainab was not standing right there. "She is a designer, you know. Well, she tries to be. She sews things and sells them. It is her little business. She is so hardworking even if she is not very successful. I always tell her that she should try to find a real job, something more stable, but she keeps trying with this design thing." Zainab felt her face get hot. She wanted to say something, but no words came out. She just stood there, feeling her confidence drain out of her like water from a broken cup. Throughout the evening, Ade continued to introduce Zainab to people in the same way. "This is my poor friend from the neighborhood. Look at her dress, she made it. Is that not sweet? She has a little sewing business." Each time Ade said these things, people would look at Zainab with pity or amusement, and Zainab would feel another piece of herself break. Then something worse happened. Aid's mother came to her with a request. "Zainab dear," she said in a voice that was not unkind but also not warm. "We are running short on staff. Could you help serve drinks to the guests?" It would be such a help. She pressed a white apron into Zainab's hands without waiting for an answer. Zainab wanted to refuse. Every part of her wanted to say no and walk out. But she was raised to be respectful, especially to her elders. She took the apron, went to the kitchen, and changed out of her beautiful dress. She spent the rest of the evening serving drinks, clearing plates, and watching from the edges of the party while everyone enjoyed themselves. She heard Aid's new friends laughing and talking about their expensive holidays and their designer shopping. She heard them making jokes about people like Zainab, people who had to work hard for everything, people who could not afford the things they took for granted. Nobody seemed to realize that Zainab was listening. As the night went on, Zainab felt something inside her die. The happiness she had felt when she finished her dress, the hope she had carried when she arrived at the wedding, the love she had always felt for Ade, all of it seemed to disappear. She felt replaced. She felt used. She felt worthless. When the wedding finally ended, Zainab changed back into her handmade dress and left quietly through the back. Nobody noticed her leaving. Nobody said goodbye. In the taxi on the way home, Zainab sat in silence, tears running down her face. She had been humiliated in front of hundreds of people. Her oldest friend had turned her pain into entertainment for wealthy strangers. That night, Zainab cried alone in her small apartment, feeling more lost than she had ever felt before. For 3 weeks after the wedding, Zainab did not leave her apartment. She did not answer her phone. She did not respond to messages from friends who had heard about what happened at the wedding. The story had spread through Lagos like fire, and with each retelling, it seemed to get worse. People said that Ade had thrown Zainab out of the wedding. People said that Zainab had begged to work as a server. People said things that were not true, but the lies hurt just as much as the truth. Zainab spent her days sitting on her small bed, staring at nothing. She could not eat much. Food tasted like ash in her mouth. She could not sleep well either. Every night, she would close her eyes and see the faces of those women laughing at her, hear their cruel words echoing in her mind. She would see Aid's fake smile, the smile that had betrayed her more than any angry words ever could. Her apartment was small and simple. There was a bedroom, a living room, a tiny kitchen, and a bathroom that was barely bigger than a closet. The walls were painted a pale yellow color that was beginning to peel. Zainab had sewn colorful curtains to brighten up the space, and she had hung some of her designs on the walls. But even her beautiful creations could not lift the darkness that had settled over her. She thought about calling Ade to confront her. She imagined the conversation in her head. She would tell Ade exactly how much she had hurt her. She would make Ade feel the same shame that she felt. She would make Ade sorry. These thoughts went around and around in her mind like a wheel that would not stop spinning. Then one evening, without warning, there was a knock on her door. Zainab opened it to find her grandmother, Mama Ya, standing there with a stern look on her face. Mama Ya was 73 years old, with silver hair tied back in a simple style and a face that told the story of a long life lived with both joy and hardship. She was a small woman, but she carried herself with the dignity of someone who had survived many difficult things. "Why are you hiding like a rat in a hole?" Mama Ya asked, pushing past Zainab into the apartment. It was not a question that required an answer. Mama Ya had always been direct. She did not believe in wasting time with soft words or gentle approaches. Zainab tried to smile, but it came out as a sad, broken thing. "Grandma, I am fine. I just needed some time alone." Mama Ya looked around the apartment. She saw the dirty dishes on the table. She saw the curtains drawn to block out the sun. She saw her granddaughter, thin and pale, wearing the same clothes for days. She said nothing at first. She just sat down slowly on the old sofa, her movements showing her age. "Sit," Mama Ya commanded, pointing to the space next to her. Zainab sat down. Her grandmother took her hand and held it firmly. "Tell me what happened," Mama Ya said. Zainab told her everything. She told her about the mocking, about being introduced as the poor friend, about being asked to serve drinks, about overhearing the cruel jokes about people like her. As she talked, the tears came again. She cried so hard that her whole body shook. Her grandmother held her hand and let her cry. When Zainab finished, there was silence for a long time. Mama Ya did not say anything. She just sat there, holding her granddaughter's hand, letting her know that she was not alone. Finally, Mama Ya spoke. Her voice was quiet but strong. "Child, I want to ask you something, and I want you to think carefully before you answer. Do you want revenge or do you want success?" Zainab looked at her grandmother with surprise. "What do you mean?" she asked. "I mean this," Mama Ya said, turning to face her fully. "You have two choices in front of you right now. You can spend your energy planning how to hurt Ade, how to make her pay for what she did. You can imagine ways to embarrass her, ways to make her feel as bad as you feel. That is one path. Or you can spend your energy building your life, making yourself strong, becoming successful. That is the other path. But you cannot do both. You have to choose. Zainab opened her mouth to speak, but Mama Ya continued. I have lived a long life, child. I have seen many people destroyed by revenge. I have seen people waste years of their lives trying to hurt someone who hurt them. And you know what? The person they hurt does not even remember after a while. But the person seeking revenge, they carry that pain forever. It poisons their life. It keeps them small. Mama Ya stood up and walked to the window. She opened the curtains and sunlight flooded into the apartment. Look outside, Zainab. The world is big and full of possibilities. But you will never see any of them if you stay focused on what happened at that wedding. That wedding was one day in your life. Do you want it to be the thing that defines you? Do you want it to be the thing that stops you from becoming who you are meant to be? Zainab felt something shift inside her. It was small at first, like a tiny crack in a wall, but it was there. There is an old saying from our people, Mama Ya said, sitting back down. A patient dog eats the fattest bone. Do you know what that means? It means that if you wait and work patiently, you will get the best rewards. It does not mean you give up. It means you are smart about what you do with your energy. Over the next few days, Mama Ya came to stay with Zainab. She cooked healthy food to help her granddaughter regain her strength. She opened all the curtains and let light into the dark apartment. She talked to Zainab about life and about choices. Success is the best response to those who doubted you, Mama Ya would say. When you are successful, when you are happy, when you are living a good life, that is when people who hurt you will regret what they did. But more importantly, you will not care anymore. You will be too busy living your own life to think about them. Slowly, Zainab began to see things differently. The pain was still there, but it started to transform. Instead of turning into bitterness and a desire for revenge, it began to turn into fuel. She thought about all the things she could do with her talent. She thought about all the people she could help with her designs. She thought about the business she wanted to build. One morning, about 2 weeks after her grandmother arrived, Zainab woke up early. She felt different. The darkness that had wrapped around her was still there, but it was smaller now. She got out of bed, took a shower, and put on clean clothes. Then she went to her sewing table and picked up a needle and thread. What are you going to make? Mama Ya asked, watching her from the kitchen. Everything, Zainab said quietly. I am going to make everything I have ever dreamed of making. Mama Ya smiled. It was the first real smile Zainab had seen from her grandmother in weeks. That is my girl, Mama Ya said. From that moment on, Zainab's life began to change. She spent her days sewing, designing, and planning. She read books about business. She watched videos online about marketing. She made a list of all the things she needed to learn to make her dream a reality. Her grandmother sat beside her through all of it, offering wisdom and support. The humiliation at the wedding did not disappear. The memory of it would return sometimes, usually late at night. But it no longer had power over her. It had become the beginning of something new. 18 months had passed since that dark day when Zainab sat alone in her apartment, broken and humiliated. Now, as she stood in her new boutique on Victoria Island, looking at herself in the mirror, she could barely recognize the woman staring back at her. But this woman was real. This woman was strong. This woman was Zainab Mensah, Lagos's most celebrated fashion designer. The journey from that small apartment to this moment had not been easy. In those first months after her grandmother's visit, Zainab worked harder than she had ever worked in her entire life. She would wake up at 5 in the morning and start sewing. She would work until late at night, her fingers moving quickly and carefully across the fabric. Her grandmother would bring her tea and food, making sure she ate and drank enough to keep going. But Zainab knew that hard work alone would not be enough. She needed to learn business. She needed to understand marketing. She needed to know how to reach people who would buy her designs. So she spent her evenings watching videos online, reading books about entrepreneurship, and studying how successful designers built their brands. One of the most important things Zainab did was focus on what made her different from other designers. She realized that the fashion world was full of people trying to copy European and American styles. But Zainab had something unique to offer. She had African heritage. She had the knowledge of traditional African fabrics and patterns. She had grown up with stories of African queens and warriors. Why should she try to be like everyone else when she could celebrate who she was? This realization changed everything. Zainab began creating designs that blended traditional African patterns with modern, sophisticated silhouettes. She used Kent cloth from Ghana. She used beautiful Ankara fabrics in bold colors. She incorporated beadwork and traditional embroidery into contemporary designs. Each piece she created told a story about Africa, about strength, about beauty, about pride. She made her first collection with very little money. She used her savings to buy fabric from markets across Lagos and from traders in neighboring countries. She worked day and night to create 20 pieces that she believed in completely. Each design was special. Each one was made with love and attention to detail. Then came the moment that changed everything. A young fashion blogger named Kwesi discovered Zainab's work. He had been visiting small exhibitions and fashion shows across Lagos, looking for new talent. When he saw Zainab's designs, he stopped moving. He stood there for a long time just looking at each piece. After the exhibition, Kwesi asked Zainab if he could take photographs of her designs to post on his social media. Zainab agreed, not knowing that this simple agreement would change her life forever. Kwesi posted the photographs on Instagram with a caption that read, "This is the future of African fashion. Not imitation. Not copying the West. But celebrating who we are. Meet Zainab Mensah." He posted 15 pictures of her designs, each one more beautiful than the last. Within 2 days, Kwesi's post had been shared thousands of times. People from all over Africa were commenting on the photographs, asking who this designer was, where they could buy her clothes, how they could contact her. Zainab's phone rang so many times that she had to turn it off and turn it back on again. Her email inbox filled up with messages from people interested in buying her designs. The attention grew quickly. A popular magazine called African Style reached out to Zainab and asked to feature her in their next issue. When the magazine came out, Zainab's face was on the cover, and there was a long article about her designs and her story. The article talked about how she had started with nothing and built something beautiful through hard work and determination. After the magazine feature, celebrities began reaching out to her. A famous Nollywood actress asked Zainab to design a dress for the Africa Movie Academy Awards. When the actress wore Zainab's design on the red carpet, she looked absolutely stunning. Photographers took thousands of pictures. The dress was featured in newspapers and on entertainment websites across Africa. Then another celebrity asked for a design. Then another. Soon, Zainab was designing for some of the most famous women in Africa. Each time one of them wore her design publicly, it was like free advertising. More and more people learned about Zainab Mensah and her beautiful African-inspired fashion. With the money she was making from her designs, Zainab decided to open a physical store. She found a small space on Victoria Island, one of the most exclusive and expensive areas in Lagos. The store was not very big, but it was perfect. She painted the walls a warm cream color and arranged her designs carefully on beautiful wooden displays. She put African art on the walls. She created an atmosphere that made people feel like they were stepping into a space that celebrated African beauty and culture. The day the boutique opened, there was a line of people waiting outside. Some were celebrities. Some were wealthy businesswomen. Some were regular people who admired Zainab's designs and had saved money to buy one of her pieces. Zainab stood behind the counter, watching people try on her clothes, seeing their faces light up when they looked in the mirror. But something even more important was happening inside Zainab. As she watched her success grow, she was not thinking about revenge anymore. She was not thinking about Ade or that awful wedding. Instead, she was thinking about her designs. She was thinking about the women who wore her clothes and felt beautiful and powerful. She was thinking about young girls who might see her success and believe that they could achieve their dreams too. Zainab's face appeared in newspapers and magazines. She was invited to speak at fashion schools and business conferences. Young designers came to her asking for advice. She gave them her time freely, remembering how lonely she had felt when she was struggling. One evening, about 18 months after she started her journey of transformation, Zainab stood alone in her boutique after closing time. She looked at her designs displayed around the room. She thought about the girl who had arrived at that wedding wearing a handmade dress, full of hope and love for her friend. That girl had been broken that day. But from those broken pieces, something new had been built. Something stronger. Something more beautiful. Zainab picked up her phone and called her grandmother. "Grandma, I want to thank you," she said. "If you had not come to my apartment that day and asked me if I wanted revenge or success, I do not know where I would be now." Mama Ya laughed softly on the other end of the line. "Child, I did not make you successful. You did that yourself. I just helped you see that you had a choice. You chose the right path." That night, Zainab stood in front of her mirror again, the same mirror she had stood in front of 18 months ago in her small apartment. But now she was looking at a different woman. She was looking at a woman who had taken her pain and turned it into power. She was looking at a woman who had built something beautiful. She was looking at a woman who had discovered who she truly was meant to be. The girl who had served drinks at a wedding was gone. In her place stood Zainab Mensa, a celebrated fashion designer, a successful businesswoman, and a woman who had reclaimed her dignity and her worth. And the most beautiful part of it all was that she had done it by being herself, by celebrating her African heritage, and by refusing to let someone else's cruelty define her future. It was a Tuesday afternoon when Zainab saw Ade for the first time since the wedding. Zainab was having lunch at a high-end restaurant in Ikoyi called the Garden House. She had come there to meet with a magazine editor who wanted to discuss a feature about her latest collection. The restaurant was beautiful, with white tablecloths, soft lighting, and waiters who moved silently between tables. Zainab felt comfortable here now. She belonged in spaces like this. She was sitting at a table near the window, looking at her menu, when she noticed a familiar figure walk through the restaurant door. It was Ade. For a moment, Zainab's heart stopped. She had not seen Ade since that terrible day at the wedding. 18 months had passed, but Zainab could still remember every detail of that experience. Ade looked different. She was still beautiful, still dressed in expensive clothes, still wearing jewelry that cost more than most people made in a year. But there was something worn about her. Her face looked tired. There were lines around her eyes that had not been there before. She was walking with a man who did not look particularly happy, and he was looking at his phone instead of looking at Ade. For a second, Zainab thought about hiding. She could turn her face away, pretend she had not seen Ade, and let this moment pass. But then she stopped herself. Why should she hide? She had done nothing wrong. She stood up slowly and calmly. Ade was walking past Zainab's table when she suddenly froze. Her eyes widened and her mouth fell open slightly. She recognized Zainab. For a moment, the two women just looked at each other across the space of a few steps. It was like time had stopped. Then Ade's shock turned into something else. Her face arranged itself into a bright smile, the kind of smile that did not reach her eyes. Zainab, she called out louder than necessary. Oh my God, is that you? I did not recognize you at first. You look so different. She walked over quickly and pulled Zainab into an awkward hug. The man she was with continued to look at his phone. Ade did not introduce him or acknowledge his presence. I have been thinking about you, Ade said, still smiling that fake smile. It has been so long. How have you been? What have you been doing? Zainab looked at Ade carefully. She could see the nervousness behind that smile. She could see the way Ade's hands were shaking slightly. Ade was frightened. She was worried about what Zainab might say or do. Zainab took a breath. She had imagined this moment many times over the past 18 months. In her imagination she had said harsh things. She had made Ade feel bad. But now that the moment was here, Zainab realized that she did not want to do any of those things. She did not feel angry anymore. She felt calm. She felt strong. I have been well, Ade, Zainab said in a steady voice. I have been very well, actually. I have been building my business and focusing on my designs. That is wonderful, Ade said quickly. That is really wonderful. I always knew you would do something special with your sewing. I mean, remember when we were young and you would make clothes for your dolls? I always thought that was so creative. Zainab nodded politely. She could see that Ade was trying to rewrite history, trying to pretend that she had always believed in Zainab, that she had never mocked her or humiliated her. It was nice to see you, Ade, Zainab said gently. I hope you are doing well. It was a dismissal, said kindly but clearly. Zainab sat back down at her table and turned her attention back to her menu. She could feel Ade standing there for a moment longer, uncertain about what to do. Then Ade said a quick goodbye and walked away to her own table. Zainab finished her lunch and her meeting with the magazine editor, but her mind kept returning to that brief encounter. She realized something important. Ade no longer had power over her. The woman who had humiliated her was now the one who was nervous and uncertain. Zainab had become someone worthy of respect, and Ade knew it. 2 weeks later, Zainab was preparing for the biggest moment of her career so far. She had been selected to showcase her latest collection at Lagos Fashion Week, one of the most important fashion events in Africa. Designers from across the continent came to display their work. It was a huge opportunity. The night of her show, Zainab was backstage with her models, going over last-minute details. She had created 20 new pieces for this collection, each one more stunning than the last. The designs celebrated African women in all their strength and beauty. There were dresses inspired by warrior queens, by business leaders, by mothers and daughters. Each piece told a story. As Zainab was adjusting a model's dress, one of her assistants came to her and whispered, "Your friend Ade just arrived. She is sitting in the front row." Zainab was surprised. She did not think Ade would come. But she did not have time to think about it. The music started and it was time for her show to begin. The lights came up and the first model walked onto the runway. The audience went silent. The dress was breathtaking, a blend of traditional Kent patterns with a modern silhouette that made the model look like a queen. One by one, the models walked down the runway, each one showcasing a different design, a different story. The audience was captivated. People leaned forward in their seats. Some took photographs. Some whispered to the people sitting next to them. Zainab watched from backstage, her heart full. This was what she had worked for. This was her dream coming true. As the last model walked down the runway, the music swelled. Then something incredible happened. The audience stood up. They began to clap. The clapping grew louder and louder. It was a standing ovation. Zainab's collection had moved them so deeply that they could not stay in their seats. Zainab walked onto the runway to acknowledge the applause. She walked with her head held high, a smile of genuine joy on her face. As she walked, she scanned the audience. And there in the front row sat Ade. Her hands were clapping, but her face was different. She was not smiling. She was crying. In that moment, Zainab understood something profound. Ade was not crying because she was happy for Zainab. She was crying because she was finally seeing what she had thrown away. She was seeing what Zainab had become. She was seeing the beauty and the power that she had tried to diminish that day at the wedding. Zainab looked at Ade for a moment, then she looked away. She did not need Ade's tears. She did not need Ade's regret. What Zainab had achieved was not about making Ade feel bad. It was about making herself feel good. It was about proving to herself that she was worthy. It was about showing the world what an African woman could create when she believed in herself. After the show, Zainab went to a celebration party with other designers and fashion industry people. She was congratulated by magazine editors, by fashion designers from other countries, by celebrities and business leaders. Everyone wanted to talk to her, to photograph with her, to be part of her success. At one point, someone told Zainab that Ade had left the venue shortly after the show ended. Zainab did not feel sad about this. She felt a quiet sense of peace. She had not needed Ade to stay. She had not needed Ade's approval or her friendship. Zainab had become someone great on her own terms, by her own effort, through her own determination. That night, as Zainab lay in her bed in her comfortable apartment, she thought about the journey she had been on. She thought about the broken girl who had left that wedding in tears. She thought about the moment her grandmother had asked her if she wanted revenge or success. She thought about all the late nights of sewing, all the hard work, all the belief in herself even when nobody else believed. Zainab realized that the standing ovation at Lagos Fashion Week had not been just about her designs, although they were beautiful. It had been about her journey. It had been about a woman who had been knocked down and had chosen to get back up. It had been about someone who had taken her pain and turned it into something meaningful. The truth was that Zainab's success was louder than any words she could have said to Ade. It was louder than any anger or any tears. It was the most powerful response she could have given to humiliation. And the best part was that Ade would never stop seeing Zainab's success. She would see it on magazine covers. She would see it on beautiful women wearing Zainab's designs. She would hear about it from friends and from the media. Zainab's success would follow her, a constant reminder of what happens when you underestimate someone. A year had passed since Lagos Fashion Week, and Zainab's life had continued to grow in ways she could never have imagined. Her boutique on Victoria Island was thriving. She had opened 2 more stores in different parts of Lagos. Her designs were being sold in shops across Africa. International fashion magazines were calling her, asking to feature her work. She had been invited to showcase her collection in Paris and in New York. Her bank account, which had once held just enough money for fabric and food, now held enough to make real changes in the world. But as Zainab became more successful, she began to think about something different. She thought about all the young girls like her, girls from poor families who had talent but no opportunity. She thought about the girls who could not afford to buy good fabric. She thought about the girls who did not have anyone to teach them, to believe in them, to guide them through the difficult journey of building a career in fashion. One day, sitting in her office in her flagship boutique, Zainab made a decision. She was going to start a foundation. She was going to help young designers from poor backgrounds. She was going to give them the opportunity that she had fought so hard to create for herself. Zainab called it the African Designers Rising Foundation. The mission was simple but powerful. The foundation would identify young people with talent but without resources. It would provide them with free training in design and business skills. It would give them access to quality materials and equipment. It would connect them with established designers and business leaders who could mentor them. Most importantly, it would tell them that their dreams mattered, that their talent was valuable, and that their backgrounds did not determine their futures. Zainab invested a significant portion of her earnings into the foundation. She rented a large studio space in a part of Lagos where many young people lived. She hired experienced designers to teach classes. She created a library of design books and fashion magazines. She set up sewing machines and computers where young people could learn and create. On the day the foundation opened, 50 young people showed up. Most of them were between 16 and 25 years old. Most of them came from families that did not have much money. But all of them had one thing in common. They had a dream. They wanted to create. They wanted to design. They wanted to build better lives for themselves. Zainab stood in front of them on that first day and told them her story. She told them about the wedding, about the humiliation, about the dark weeks that followed. She told them about her grandmother's wisdom and about the moment she decided to focus on success instead of revenge. She told them about the hard work, the late nights, the times when she wanted to give up but did not. When she finished, many of the young people were crying. They recognized their own struggles in her story. They saw that someone who had been where they were had made it. They began to believe that they could make it too. Over the next months and years, the foundation grew. Zainab became a mentor to dozens of young designers. She taught them not just about design but about business, about resilience, about believing in themselves. She attended their fashion shows. She helped them find investors. She used her connections in the industry to open doors for them. Many of her mentor went on to start their own successful fashion businesses. Some of them opened their own shops. Some of them worked for international fashion houses. All of them remembered Zainab as the person who believed in them when they did not believe in themselves. It was during one of the foundation's events that Zainab encountered Ade again. The foundation was hosting a showcase where the young designers would display their work. Zainab had invited members of the media, business leaders, and people from the fashion industry. She wanted to show Lagos that African talent was everywhere, that it just needed opportunity and support. Ade arrived with a friend. She was looking at the designs on display when she suddenly came face to face with Zainab. For a moment, both women froze. Then Ade's face flushed with embarrassment and shame. She tried to turn away but Zainab gently touched her arm. "Hello Ade," Zainab said softly. "I am glad you came." Ade looked at Zainab with surprise. She had expected anger. She had expected coldness. She had expected Zainab to turn her away. But instead, Zainab was smiling at her with genuine warmth. "Zainab, I do not know what to say," Ade stammered. "I have wanted to apologize for so long. What I did to you at my wedding was cruel and wrong. I was jealous of you and I took it out on you in the worst way. I have regretted it every single day for the past 2 years." Zainab listened without interrupting. When Ade finished, Zainab reached out and took her hand. "Ade, I forgave you a long time ago," Zainab said. "Not because what you did was okay, but because I realized that holding on to anger was only hurting me. It was not hurting you. Forgiveness was not about you. It was about me. It was about freeing myself." Tears ran down Ade's face. "How can you be so kind to me? After everything I did?" "Because I am not the same person I was at that wedding," Zainab said. "And you are not the same person either. We have both grown. We have both changed. Life has taught us things. I learned that the best response to cruelty is not revenge. It is success. It is kindness. It is living well and helping others." Zainab invited Ade to look around the foundation's space. She introduced Ade to some of the young designers. She told Ade their stories of struggle and hope and determination. Ade listened carefully and Zainab could see something shift in her. She could see genuine compassion replacing the shame. Before Ade left, she asked Zainab if there was anything she could do to help. She wanted to support the foundation. She wanted to make amends, not just with Zainab, but with the universe for the cruelty she had participated in. Zainab smiled. "Yes," she said. "Help me. Help these young people. Use whatever resources and connections you have to open doors for them. That is the best way to make amends. That is the way to create real change." Ade agreed, and from that day forward, she became a supporter of the African Designers Rising Foundation. She introduced young designers to her wealthy friends. She helped them find investors. She used her position and her resources to help the very people she had once been cruel to. Years passed. Zainab's foundation grew into something much larger than she had imagined. It expanded to other African countries. It helped hundreds of young people achieve their dreams. Zainab became known not just as a successful fashion designer, but as a woman who lifted others up, a woman who used her success to create opportunities for the next generation. One day, Zainab was sitting in her office when she received an award. It was for her work in supporting African designers and for her contributions to the fashion industry. She was invited to give a speech at the award ceremony. Standing on the stage, looking out at the audience, Zainab thought about her journey. She thought about the girl in the handmade dress at that wedding. She thought about the woman who had wanted revenge. She thought about the moment she chose success instead. She thought about all the young people whose lives had been changed because she had chosen to lift them up instead of tearing others down. When I was humiliated, Zainab said to the audience, I could have chosen to hurt the person who hurt me. I could have spent years plotting revenge. But I learned something important. True revenge is not destruction. True revenge is not making someone feel bad. True revenge, real victory, comes from living well, from thriving, from becoming so successful and so kind that you can reach back and help others climb up the mountain you climbed. She paused and looked directly at Ade, who was sitting in the audience. Ade was smiling, genuinely smiling, without shame or pretense. I also learned that forgiveness is powerful, Zainab continued. Forgiveness does not mean what someone did was okay. It means you are free from the weight of carrying anger. It means you can move forward. It means you can become the best version of yourself. After the ceremony, Zainab stood outside the building, looking up at the night sky filled with stars. Her grandmother, now 85 years old, came and stood beside her. Mama Ya took her granddaughter's hand. I am so proud of you, child, Mama Ya said. Not just because you are successful, but because you are kind. Because you remembered where you came from. Because you are helping others. I learned from the best, Zainab said, squeezing her grandmother's hand. That night, Zainab thought about how far she had come. The circle had closed. She had not just survived humiliation. She had transformed it. She had taken the worst moment of her life and turned it into something beautiful. She had proven that the greatest revenge is not anger or destruction. It is success. It is kindness. It is using your power to lift others up. It is living a life so full of purpose and meaning that those who hurt you become footnotes in a much larger, more beautiful story.